Hi, everyone. We're going to talk about toddler language and literacy development. All right, so about this time, 18 months, the toddler age group, toddlers are little sponges. They're eagerly absorbing the words and conversations around them. And this is the stage which language development usually starts to take off. As children continue to develop, the babbling begins to sound more and more like conversation. This is sometimes referred to as jargon, and this babble has a rhythm and a tone which sounds a lot like adult speech. After about a year of making various sounds and syllables, young children start to say their first words. And something to know about babbling, the sounds, rhythms, and tone in babble are influenced by the language the baby is exposed to. So children are using the sounds they hear around them, and the consonants that are used in the babbling are usually the consonants that appear in their first words. Children who are exposed to more than one language babble as much as children exposed to only one language. So children who are delayed in their development of sounds or babble are at risk for a communication delay. So you're wanting to observe the children in your care, respond to their babble as if they are talking. You may imitate their babble. If a child is making a sound as they're playing, instead of interrupting with your speech in asking questions or even broadcasting the actions the child is doing in their play, you might just want to repeat the babble, and that might be a start to a conversation in babble, right? And your tonations and emphasis in your speech will possibly create this type of communication with a child at that moment that you don't know what it means, but the child might know what it means. And you'll see this in the video of the twins who are babbling to each other. They're carrying on a conversation. So you are acting as the child's interpreter. If you think the child is trying to tell you something specific when they babble, put the message into words. For example, if the child looks at a car while babbling, you might interpret the child's message by saying, there's a car, right? You're labeling and giving words to that object that they have noticed. So emergent literacy, so important. Babbling is part of this. As adults, we tend to want, children to speak clearly and use the words that we can understand. And I think it's really important to understand that this emergent literacy of children looks so different from adult speech, and we want to really encourage it. So it's getting ready for reading. Skills begin to develop very early in life, in utero. These critical school readiness skills go beyond knowing the ABCs. It's interacting with language. It's playing with language. Early literacy skills begin early as children learn to use verbal and nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication, some cultures, it's a glance. Children learn from watching adults and understand that a glance or an expression has a meaning, right? And so really understand that there's verbal and nonverbal communication happening. As language is developed, children are building their vocabulary. Children learn new vocabulary in different ways through reading books. So that's why we're talking about literacy and language development. Children learn new vocabulary by talking with adults, by hearing people speak. Studies have shown that the larger a child's vocabulary, the quicker they will learn to read, because they are familiar with more words they encounter in the text that they are exposed to. Theme books are really popular and important during the toddler years, they feature a series of sequentially related events and illustrations that support these events. So you might look at All About Me books. Toddlers are egocentric. They're very interested in learning and seeing themselves in the books that they are exposed to. Adventure themes, animals themes, daily activities. Children love, even older children, they love to see themselves in books. And so if a toddler sees, the bedtime routine or even the health routine of brushing your teeth, getting dressed, being ready to go out of the house, they connect with these depictions of what is happening in the book that reflect what's happening in their everyday life. So toddlers need an adult language partner, a consultant, a designer, or an authority. And you may not think of yourself as that authority of language, right? But the authority is, when you think about it, the power to influence or command thought, to have an opinion or a behavior, a person in command. So as an adult, you are the authority of language. So you are introducing the syntax of language, vocabulary, intonation. You're the authority within this situation. The designer is a person who plans the form, the look, or the workings of something. And so you are helping toddlers understand the design of language. And then you are the language partner. You are the consultant, a person who provides expert advice and comes alongside the toddler to support that language development. Within our competitive US culture, sometimes parents want to pressure educators to teach young children faster or more than the child is ready for. And I want you just to reflect on how this can be detrimental to children and especially toddlers in this age, right? We want them to quickly learn, and somehow the faster children learn, supposedly it equates to the smarter they are. But this could be termed miseducation. And David Elkin, who is a professor of child study at Tufts University, warns against the dangers of appropriating for children, young children and infants, the school-aged curriculum. And Erik Erikson talks about the consequences that miseducation may have in a child's resolution of what Erik Erikson describes as crisis, the formation of a personality, the child's feelings of mistrust, shame, and doubt versus trust, autonomy. Development of guilt or alienation may overshadow initiative and belonging, because you're introducing in miseducation skills that are too high or too challenging for the child to accomplish. And so instead of becoming instead of the child feeling like they can learn new vocabulary and learn sentence structure, they begin to doubt their ability to learn at this level. So it's really important to introduce language and literacy at that proximal area of development. And then we come along and scaffold and support the child to develop the language at their level. So some different speech that's happening during this developmental time in a child's life is telegraphic speech, which is the use of a few content words to represent an entire utterance, right? A child might say food instead of I'm hungry, or I go instead of it's my turn. Formulaic speech in young children is when they're using phrases or words appropriately because they have seen it modeled, right? So they're saying, wow, just like the adult might say, wow, when they're seeing something that really piques their interest or is something new to them. And so you'll find toddlers using speech in this manner. So, roles that adults take in promoting language. Um, you can use these strategies to help kids from birth all the way up through 5 years, depending upon their language level, to develop basic ideas in vocabulary and language. So, imitation, if a child is making noises, make the same sound. Or if a child um, points at an object and labels it, imitate that language and labels the same item as the child did. To interpret, if again, we talked about this, if the child is pointing to possibly an apple juice that he wants to drink, he is communicating with you, even though he doesn't say the word, right? So you're going to take this opportunity to the next level by interpreting what the child is trying to say, and you respond with apple juice. You want apple juice. Expanding and recasting. When the child says red truck, you can expand on that by saying, yes, a big red truck. If the child says the dragon jumping on the bed, you can recast the grammar by saying the dragon is jumping on the bed. You're using stress and intonation to highlight the words you want the child to focus on. Commenting and describing. Instead of telling children what to do during playtime, be a sportscaster and give a play-by-play of what they're doing. Say, you're driving the red car around in circles, or you're putting the cow into the barn. Eliminate negative talk. Try not to say things like, that's not where the cow goes, or the sky isn't pink. Remember, we want to encourage all attempts to communicate and validate those attempts. Contingent responses. Respond immediately to all attempts to communicate, including words and gestures. Balance turn taking. Give kids a space to exercise their communication skills by making sure that they get a turn. Label things. Even when kids aren't ready to use words yet, you can prepare them by labeling things in their environment. During bubble baths, keep referring to the bubbles. During snack time, you can label the apple juice. Limit testing. If you know that a child knows what sound a pig makes, don't keep asking them. Instead of testing during playtime, you might just ask, I wonder where the pig is going, right? Invite the child to respond, but it doesn't put them on the spot by saying, what does a pig make? What sound does a pig make? Labeled praise. Instead of just saying good job, put a label on that praise. If your child isn't yet using words, or even if they are, you can say, good job putting all the blocks away, because it reinforces their good behavior. And even more, you're describing their action. You're giving words to their action. For a child who is using some words to communicate, you could say, nice job telling me that you want apple juice, or nice job saying more juice, please. And so here's just a table that even goes more into these tips of talking with toddlers. You could use it as a handout to give to parents, or even refer to it yourself as you're interacting with toddlers. So this will end our first part of toddler language development. And then in part 2, I'll go into more engaging toddlers with text and using books to advance language development in toddlers. See you in a little bit.